Hey everyone, welcome back to Hollywood Junket. I'm Shameika, and we are going to be digging into last week's kind of where last week left off with Claim to Fame, and then we're going to recap what happened this week. But first, again, like I said, my name is Shameika, and I can be found over at Check the Rhymes TV on YouTube and at themofochronicles.com. And I'm so excited because joining me today is superfan, my co-host, Sade Moore. Welcome, Sade.
Thanks, Shameika. I'm happy to be here. Love to talk about Claim of Fame, so I'm ready.
Yes, the last couple of weeks have been insane. So, look, last week, Hugo guessed Elton John for Chris. Now, what did you ever connect Elton John for Chris at all? Because I was like, what are they thinking?
Never, but only because all the clues that they were getting, it was no one from England or no one from London. So when they were like so set on Elton John, it was like, no, it was like, nails on a chalkboard. It was like, please, anyone else. Like, just say anyone else in America in the form. But I understand they're so caught on that colorful jacket. So, what do you think,
Yeah,
Shameika?
yeah. I thought Elton John coming out of Utah. I literally was yelling at the TV, like, what sense does that make? This is Sir Elton John.
Literally, Sir Elton John, literally.
Well, of course, Hugo was wrong, and he got sent home. But before he left, his relative was revealed to be Jimmy Carter.
Right.
And during the reveal, which I thought was interesting, that everybody started to kind of tear up. So I don't know if there was something we missed. I mean, I was tearing up at home watching because when he mentioned that Jimmy Carter was in hospice, I just lost my grandfather a couple months ago and he was in hospice. So I'm all in my feelings anyway. But I teared up for him because I know what that process is like. But I didn't know why everybody else was crying, really. What do you think that was about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Shameika, I'm sorry for your loss,
Thank
for
you.
your grandfather. But I was kind of curious about that as well. But my mind kind of went towards like, yeah, it was the hospice aspect, but I think my mind kind of went towards who Hugo is, who his character is, who his personality is, who he is as a human being. It
Mhm.
really did seem like he got along with everyone. Yeah, you could definitely see the divides and the kind of teams in the house, but I do
Mhm.
think, for the most part, everyone did get along, and definitely Hugo was one of those no man's land kind of same, both double spy almost, him and Cole, long lost Cole. but but yeah.
So also last week, Chris and Gabriel, they won the challenge together. They got to pull a clue and they pulled Gabriel's because that makes absolute sense to pull
Hmm.
his, right? Well,
Yeah.
they made a pact to only show clues to each other. I was like, don't do it. But anyway, guess what? Chris broke the pact. I don't know if anybody was shocked because I was not. Were you shocked?
I wasn't shocked whatsoever. I knew it was going to happen, but I was actually kind of like screaming or like giggling, whatever, like screaming for like, this is crazy, and giggling because Gabriel he had me so dead because he was like the whole time, he was like, here's my clue. Like, oh, like dead giveaway, almost like, this is it. And Chris is like, yeah, this is really something. And Gabriel's like, it's over for me. You know what I mean? But come to find out, Chris had no idea who he is. A lot of other people I feel like that know who Gabriel's claim to fame is immediately knew off the bat once they saw those babies and those drums, those drumsticks.
Wait.
But it actually, I screamed because I'm like, oh my God, like it actually was the perfect pairing at the end of the day. Gabriel really did play it right, because out of all those people, come to find out, it was Chris that actually had no idea, and then Karsyn to solidify that confusion as well.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah, and the clue, you're right. It had, as he counted the babies, I'm like, come on now.
Yeah, right.
But I get it. He thought that Karsyn was going to be voted out, but it backfired clearly. But this week, there are 5 contestants left: Chris, Gabriel, JR, Karsyn, and Monay.
Mm-hmm.
At the top of the episode, Chris, of course, he felt guilty for betraying um, Gabriel, but I'm like, you knew what you was doing. Like you rolled the dice and you decided to backstab. So
Mm-hmm.
I did think, good for him for going to Gabriel first and being like, yo, I messed up. This is what I did. But what got me was when he had the audacity to get mad when Gabriel clapped back, like, bro, your character's in question. What did you think about that? How he kind of stormed out and came back? I was like, no, he didn't.
It was definitely some guilty conscience going on over there. You know what I mean? Some regret, and just like when someone's like, you did this, and it's just the tone. It's just the way that they're calling somebody out, and
Yeah.
how the realness of it, that it's like you can't hide behind anything. So the only thing to do is to, flip it back on someone and be like, oh no, you're overboard. You're throwing it out of control, because that's what he was doing, and I'm here eating it up. I'm like, okay, like this is
Right.
tea. like this is some tea at claim to fame. That's one thing about season 2. Like, get your popcorn, get your pop, get your firecrackers. You know what I mean? Like, this is some good tea that they're setting up here. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I wasn't too surprised, but then again, I think it actually speaks to the bond, the power couple that they kind of had already started to form, and it was just like, came to its peak in a sense, because it was like that's what had to happen. Chris had no idea, even if he wanted to.
Right. Yeah. Whew. I love a little spicy drama on a show that, like, where they're focused on playing the game, but I like a little drama with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we also found is that Gabriel already knew before he even came to him. So I was like, oh, see, he's a good one, because I don't know that I would have been able to look that man in his face and been like, I know what you did, without it like showing. So he's got a good poker face, I think.
Yeah, the tea was definitely piping at that point. Like, that's when it was screaming.
Yeah. So then Karsyn and JR, they were trying to figure out who Chris's celebrity relative is. The clues are, for those that haven't been putting all this together: the colorful jacket, the Vegas residency, puppy love, teen idol in the 70s. But the whole house is so set on getting Chris out. The logic, I think, is
out the door.
Out the door. It left like early on, I think. But they all decided that Billy Idol had to be his relative. Now, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old. So I knew that Billy Idol was from the 80s, not the 70s.
Right.
But, they may be young, so maybe they don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to be honest. I am in their age group, so I did not know which decade genuinely Billy Idol came from, but I knew it was around the 80s, and to some extent 80s and 90s. Doesn't he have an accent too? Now that I'm thinking about it, I
think so.
He may also be from America. They need to think bigger. They need to think more icon status, legendary. Jane would have definitely gotten this. That's why I was so kind of, it's kind of funny and sad to see that, like, someone that Jane, because of her age, because of her experience, she definitely would have gotten, but because of, rules of the game.
Yeah.
She's out. So what did you think about that? Just with the conscience of Jane being out and her being kind of the key member now, that could have solved this.
Exactly. She totally would have. It may have taken a little bit, but I think she definitely would have nailed it. So then they had this challenge. So they had to test their pop culture knowledge. Mm-hmm. Clearly, some of them had no clue who has done what in pop culture. So they had to answer pop culture or celebrity trivia. And then, of course, it was all based on how they're connected with their relatives and all that. The winner of each round won a new clue. So, and then the bottom two players were up for, the guesser, being the guesser and the guess off. So the game was kind of like musical chairs, and it just seemed like poor JR.
Yeah. But then again, it's like, we've been saying poor JR. Boo. Oh my God, the book gets me every single time. Like, I'm like, oh, please, I hope you're just safe for all the rounds. That's what I really be worried about.
Right. But it's like some of the things, like, I'm like, as we've been seeing the challenges each episode, it's like, I just want to reach through the TV and shake him a little, like, come on, get it together, bro.
Mm-hmm. Just a little pick me up.
Yeah. So, Karsyn won the first round and won her clue, which was a relief for her. And I think we all have kind of gotten on board with who her celebrity is. They started to guess it, Some of them did, but then some of them were still like, I don't know. But who do you think her relative is?
Well, I'm gonna be completely honest. I'm not the biggest NASCAR buff. I don't know much about it. So the top people that they have even been saying, I feel like those are the only people I know, other than Lightning McQueen. You know what I mean? Like Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and the third one was Danica Patrick. I actually was thinking of her, but once they used her in the round, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it can't be her then. But that's who I was thinking. I was like, maybe it's a little bit Danica, a little bit DP. You know what I mean? Like it's some, girl power NASCAR up in there. But it must be Dale Earnhardt Jr. just because I actually was thinking about this after I watched the episode, just from the fact that her clue said something about the person did a podcast with Danica Patrick and then their late father. And the fact that they just emphasize that it was the late father, emphasize, why would the father be on the podcast? I'm like, they must be famous. And
Right.
I want to say there was like whoever was doing the VO said something about like, well, technically, they could still be right, even if they do Dale Earnhardt or Dale Earnhardt Jr., since it's still technically, she's related to. But I do think that it's Junior, just from the simple fact of that on that the clue, it said,
Right.
oh, father.
Yeah, I feel like they may get specific just because, like you said, that clue. And I mean, I think it could go either way, but depending on the rules of the game, does it have to be specifically the junior or the senior? Because they both have the same name. They're still in the same family. So
still
I guess
related.
we'll see.
Right.
Yeah, so round 2, Gabriel won, but Monay thought it was her round because her dad worked on Saturday Night Live, and the final clue was Kenan Thompson. Monay was killing this game, though. So the clue read, Kenan Thompson was a cast member on the TV show All That, along with Gabriel's relative who joined the cast in the late 90s. Now, I told y'all about this like a couple recaps ago, but I'm just saying, y'all didn't want to listen to me. but she was surprised because she thought that Gabe's relative was an athlete. Did you still think that before you saw the clue with the babies, did you still think it was an athlete?
No, just because of, I believe, what episode was it? It was the one where they had to like blindfold themselves and you had to like navigate and touch the different big sculpture pieces.
Oh, yeah.
And he was tweaking about the big burger. And I was like, burger? I'm like, the only burger that's like big is Good Burger. Welcome to Good Burger, home to Good Burger.
Right.
And I was like, is he Kel Mitchell's like cousin? So that's when I knew for a fact, I'm like, he's not an athlete. He's not anywhere in the sports world. I'm like, he is somewhere in that group, in that, that Nickelodeon kids. Who would have thought it would be Nick from Nickelodeon? You know what I mean? Like,
so I think for me, the little things he was dropping about North Carolina knowledge is what got me, because I'm in North Carolina and I knew that, well, I've already said it before, who I thought his relative was. Nick Cannon grew up here. So that's why I was like, oh, wait a minute. If Nick Cannon grew up here and he grew up here, then he would know a lot of this NASCAR stuff, because this is NASCAR country around this area. So he would probably know those things. So that's kind of what made me connect it and then go all around the world to get to where I thought it's got to be Nick Cannon. But, the clue with all the 50-11 babies kind of solidified that. But Monay won round 3, and she won her own clue, which was Jake Gyllenhaal was in Spider-Man Far From Home with Monay's relative. Who do you think is her relative?
So I was kind of on Karsyn Gabriel's bandwagon of Tracy Morgan. And just because I was like 30 Rock, and I was like, I don't know if he's been in Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I was like, maybe I have seen him in it, and I just didn't realize. So I was kind of like literally before this clue, I was thinking maybe Wendy Williams or just somebody who, because she said she worked for her celebrity relative as well, and just the fact that she knew so much pop culture and trivia, I was like, maybe she's in the entertainment media world, and like that's why because she was knowing some stuff, especially when it came to Chris's round. I was like, girl. So I'm kind of more on the side of maybe it is Jamie Foxx. just from the Far From Home.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
So, but I'm like, she doesn't give Jamie Foxx. I haven't seen any clues that are Jamie Foxx, and I don't want to look it up either for Monay. But
Right.
I do like the Jaleel White one though. I'm not gonna lie, I do like that theory.
I wasn't feeling that theory, and I think because I feel like I have met the celebrity before, her celebrity person. I've been to a few events where her relative has been, and they kind of look alike to me. So, I'll just hold it. I mean, I think I've mentioned it before, but I'll hold it for now.
Okay, I'm intrigued now. Now I want to know.
We'll
I want to know
see.
your.
We'll see.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
And going quickly through the rest of the challenge, round 5, Tony Bennett was a clue, and Chris knew that was on him because he's like, whew. But Mariah Carey was also a clue, so that should have been like the whole, that should have been the solidifier right there for anybody that had seen or like questioned, kind of like, could it be Nick
Right.
Cannon? But Monay won that round, and the clue was Derek Huff rose to fame on Dancing with the Stars and was a featured dancer on season 9, the season that Chris's relative won. Now, I didn't watch that season, so I would have been stumped on that one. But JR and Gabe were the bottom 2 from this challenge, and that meant they were up for being voted as the guesser and the guess off. So now, before the guess off, Gabriel was saying that if he was voted as the guesser, he would vote for JR. And then Monay got the majority of the clues, but the most crucial ones are Gabe's and Chris's, right? So the only one that she and the other people in the house have zoned in on, and it's like, this has turned from claim to fame to Operation Get Chris Out This House.
Literally, it's Operation Get Chris Out.
Yeah.
By no means necessary. It's like,
right? It's like
Chris
they
needs to
are
go.
whoever they got to sacrifice to get this man out of the house. Like they are just like, anything, anybody is up for grabs, get him out. But the crazy thing is, I honestly feel like he's going to end up being the last one standing because they cannot figure it out. But anyway, we'll get back to that. So none of them watched Dancing with the Stars, so they could not figure out. And of course, their plan was to have JR guess Billy Idol.
JR was he was almost leading the bandwagon for Billy Idol. Like he almost was like it needs to happen, like almost like he was certain, even though that was the least certain one. That was the up in the air one, but it was like he was so certain. But I think it goes back to the witch hunt. You know what I mean? The getting Chris out. It's like he needs to be out. Like we need to do this, and it's just I think it needed to happen though.
But he guessed that Karsyn's relative was, he even said Dale Earnhardt Jr., but because he wasn't 100% sure, somewhere in his mind was like, yeah, Billy Idol's the better choice. But again, it goes back to, we got to get Chris out of the house. Monay told JR Gabe's clue, and JR, the way that he works my nerves sitting there saying, nah, I still could be a football player. Like, sir.
Literally, like, remember when he had the opportunity to pull his clue and he goes, no, I didn't need to do that. I already know who he is. I was cheering though, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm Team Gabe. Like I'm rooting for him, but like that's how I felt. I was screaming, like I was like, and not in a good way. I was like, JR, like all you had to do was pull it. Just confirm your suspicions. That's it.
But I did like that Gabe and Chris did apologize to each other and they made up. But obviously Gabe said he did it because he didn't want Chris to vote him as the guesser. But I think Gabe is playing like a very cool game right now. I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's on board with the get Chris out of the house, but he's also kind of, I don't know. Do you think he might even know who Chris's relative is? He just isn't saying anything yet, because who can he trust now in the house?
Right. Because his boy's gone, and Monay, he knows, Monay is up in the air. Monay has always been up in the air. Karsyn has always been on the other side, but still up in the air. And then Chris, his boy's treacherous twin. There's been a divide. So I honestly think with Gabe, because Gabe is actually, he doesn't, it's almost like he's insecure in his intelligence. I think he could. He most definitely could, especially with him being brothers with his celebrity relative. Like the amount of people that he's probably seen, the environments, the places, he definitely has come across him and has known about him in some way, shape, or form. And
Yeah.
that's why I think he's the force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, so obviously JR was the guesser, and he guessed that Chris's relative was Billy Idol, which we know was not true, but we did learn who JR's relative was. And did you see this coming? Lil Nas X.
I didn't see it coming until we saw his clue, and then I was like, it has to be him. Just
Yep.
from the bottle, I was like, it has to be him. But I was like, wow, like no, like he honestly could have gotten away with everything, and that makes me think now: are the clues too? Are they too much? You know, are they giving away too much to everyone? Even though the game is hard, like I
Right.
can't imagine not having a phone and not being able to just see pop culture. You know, you're in a house, you're secluded. You know, got your phones taken away, everything. So it's like I can't imagine that. But honestly, just coming from how some of the people have been found out like that, especially compared to last season too, they may be a little bit too easy because that JR could have possibly won the game. You know, aside
Right.
from his lack of winning challenges and other stuff. You know, but he really could have made it to the top. Truly.
Yeah, I still don't know about JR, but I did I it's like I did want to give him a hug through the screen and say, poor little Tink Tink, when when he was shedding a tear and talking
Right.
about his brother. But
The rain,
I,
remember?
yeah, I was like, oh, okay, next. But Monet, I think, is the power player now because she's like the clue collector, but
Right.
she
She
still
is.
has up on Chris, but it seems like she is starting to come around to Gabe's relative. But on the flip side, when they were talking about the many what was it, the different color coats and all that stuff related to Chris's clue, and I know I just jacked that all up, but y'all get the point. Gabe actually said, "Oh, like Joseph
Joseph?
from the Bible." And but if you are a fan of The Masked Singer, like I think it was season 1, I think Chris's relative was on there because there's a mention of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I don't want to spoil that for y'all. Y'all go look that up, but there's a hint there.
And so you can tell no one in the house was a theater kid, musical theater kid, and I'm playing. But it seems like it though, not gonna lie, because I feel like they would have been like, oh, I know exactly who that is immediately.
Right. So who do you think will be the final 2 players left, and who do you think is going to win?
Depending on how the next episode goes, I'm sticking with my treacherous twins, Chris and Gabriel, just because they in the game of chess, they're winning right now. Like they definitely have something on everyone, and just if they continue their momentum, they're gonna make it to the top 2. However, I do agree. Monet is she's the black sheep. She's the dark horse coming up in the race. You know what I mean? Like she's coming. They've been trying to get her out from the beginning, but she stayed strong. She stayed true, and surprisingly, her person is still up in the air. So I do think at this point, she may be able to come up on top just because she kind of does have Gabriel's person right in her hands. She just got to trust herself.
Yeah, I agree with that because I do think that, and especially because she tends to get ticked off at him real quick. So I think if he pisses her off, she's gonna be like, "Put me in as the guest," so she can get him out of there. But I think because she's so focused on Chris, she might just miss that opportunity to get rid of Gabriel. So I still think that it's going to come down to like what you said. And I think it's going to be Gabe and Chris in the final 2. And I think the winner, honestly, is probably going to be Chris.
Okay.
I do think that's my vote, because I just don't know if Gabriel has got it in his head and can pull the trigger on it and be like, boom, this is what it is.
I agree. But to be fair, he's making his claim to fame. It's like somebody needs to hire him after this. Like,
exactly.
like just both of them. Like they need to get their own show, truly.
I would watch it. Well, this has been so fun. This is the Claim to Fame recap. And then, of course, keep watching. Let us know who you think is going to be like the last one standing and who's going to win, because the game it's like time is running out and it's getting exciting, well, even more exciting. And I can't wait to see if there's going to be even more drama, all the things. So thank you, Sade, for joining me today here at Hollywood Junket.
Thank you so much, Shameika. I've had so much fun. Hope to see y'all soon.